Who we getting on the waiver wire? We'll tell you for week 8 right now on FFT Express. First of all, I can't believe it's already week 8. Holy moly. Adam Azer and Jamie Eisenberg here telling you who to pick up on the waiver wire. And Jamie, who are the priorities this week?
It's an interesting week because a lot of receivers are either hurt or missing. In the case of Jamison Williams, who could be suspended, but Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, on top of the guys that are already out. It's pretty rough. Thankfully there's no bye weeks. But if you're looking at the receiver spot, Juwan Jennings, Jalen McMillan, Tyler Lockett, Jalen Tolbert, Demario Douglas. I think all 5 of those guys you can make a case to be the number 1 receiver to be added. Douglas and Tolbert might have some long-term appeal, more long-term appeal than the other guys. More short-term appeal than the other guys. Jennings may have some more long-term appeal. Same thing with McMillan. It's just kind of all over the place depending on what you need. There is a very good quarterback available, and that's Tua Tagovailoa. Whether you think he's a must-start guy or a borderline must-start guy, he certainly has the ability to be a difference maker for you with the receiving core that he plays with. And so he should be a priority add, especially with now these receivers impacting these quarterbacks. Tight end, there's a lot of guys available that could help you in shallow leagues, but in the ones that are readily available, Cade Otton and Hunter Henry look to be the best. I like Otton just based on his now chance to be a significant factor in this Tampa Bay offense. Running back, not so much, but Jalen Warren should be added in more leagues than he's rostered in right now, which is about 51%.
You think Aton is the most valuable player to get at any position?
I do. I think there's potential for 8+ targets. They'll be creative in using him. You've seen some flashes of some quality performances. Last night was his first big game, but understandably so. Now they're missing the guy in the middle of the field in Chris Godwin. They're missing a big play threat in Mike Evans. So someone's going to have to fill those voids in particular. But I think just in terms of go-to options, as we talked about on the full-length show, it's Rachaad White and Cade Otton are the most reliable pass catchers for Tampa Bay right now.
And I would say, even if you're set at tight end, I think you should pick up Cade Otton. Because you
or
can,
Henry.
Yeah. You can make a trade. Tight end does feel pretty deep right now, but it doesn't mean like that's going to be that way forever. And don't drop anyone great for a second tight end, but Otton might just be better than the tight end you have. I don't know how many tight ends are definitively going to be better than him.
You got to feel more comfortable at him. Small sample size, but then Kyle Pitts, then Sam Laporta. You asked the question. I think it's valid. Then Mark Andrews, even though he just scored 2 touchdowns. Dalton Kincaid, these are guys that you've been starting. I think he's got more upside than him.
Yeah, and look, it's Cade Otton. He's never really done anything in his career, so we might be getting too excited.
He finished last season strong.
The bottom line is this offense is so much better than we thought it would be, and Otton could certainly fill the void for Godwin and short term for Evans. Give me your thought. Let's break down the 49ers and Buccaneers wide receivers and just how excited you are about them. I know you want to pick them up, but let's start with the Niners.
So Jennings and Ricky Pearsall now have the opportunity to step up, maybe short term for this week with the Deebo situation up in the air. We know Brandon Ayuk out for the season. Jennings has one huge game. It was week 3 when there was no Deebo and no Kittle. Otherwise, he's got 3 games, including that one, with 5+ targets. He scored 11.2 PPR points or more in all 3 of them. So I think that's a good floor if you're looking at he's going to get 5 or 6 targets if Deebo plays. If Deebo's out, you can make a case that Jennings, who, by the way, missed last week's game with a hip injury and may not play. But if both Deebo and Ayuk are out, you can make a case that Jennings could be a top 24 receiver for this week. There's just that much potential. Pearsall is just somebody I think you want to pick up and stash. As we discussed on the show, I don't think he looked great, but it was his first game after the shooting situation, limited training camp. There's a lot at play here, so I don't want to say he is not going to have the chance to be successful. I don't want to go against the San Francisco brain trust and how they pick their players. Tampa Bay, I think you're looking at Jalen McMillan just had 8 targets. He, I think, was a little bit of an underrated prospect for what he did at Washington and has a chance to be a significant playmaker. Probably going to step into more of Evans' role than Godwin's role, but it'd be very surprising if Evans plays this week. Sterling Shepard now becomes somebody I think in deeper leagues you want to take a shot on because he's probably going to step into Godwin's role, and he's been a successful slot receiver during the course of his career. He is not going to be Chris Godwin. There's no chance he's going to produce like that. Maybe at best you're looking at another Wan'Dale Robinson, which I think is a fun comp based on the team that Shepard used to play for. So if you can get 11, 12 PPR points out of Shepard and maybe then, more than that out of McMillan, why would you not be picking those guys up?
Absolutely. And then Demario Douglas is another guy that just don't forget about him. He could be really good as well. We'll talk more about those types of players.
Jalen Tolbert too.
Jalen Tolbert. I'm not quite as enthused about Tolbert, but I don't know. He hasn't really been that good, has he?
Well, you had the game against Pittsburgh where he was the first game without Cooks, was a little bit of a breakout game, and then he disappointed the following week where they went the last game they played before their bye against Detroit, which we thought, okay, great matchup. He's going to do better. He's going to play well. Nobody played well for the Cowboys in that game. So I think you look at it and say, coming back this week against San Francisco, can you buy into Jalen Tolbert completely? No. But is he worth adding? Yeah, I think so.
I like him. I do like him. I don't think he's going to be a league winner, but he's definitely someone that's going to help you get you through buys. And Jalen
But
Tolbert he's already had his buy.
we spend most of our time talking PPR, which is why Demario Douglas looks better than Tolbert. In non PPR, Tolbert's probably better than Douglas because he actually finds the end zone.
He does, but I don't know that Douglas can't find the end zone now. I mean, everything has changed with Drake May. He only played one game with Drake May, and he found the end zone.
Right, but he's more of a slot receiver. Those guys don't score a lot. Tolbert, I think, has a chance to. I mean, look, he's got what, 3 touchdowns in 5 games?
Tolbert has 2.
Oh, 2 in 5 games. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. We'll take a break. We'll come back and see if we have any questions in the chat. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today Express. I don't want to sell the waiver wire short here. Running backs, Jalen Warren's your favorite, but it's not a great week for running backs. But let's say we have Brock Purdy or Baker Mayfield. How many waiver wire quarterbacks are you starting over Purdy or Mayfield this week?
The only one over Purdy for sure is Tua. I'm not there yet with Russell Wilson. I want to see what happens with Debo and Kittle. So Debo and Kittle play, it would be Purdy over Russ.
How about Rodgers if he were available?
Oh, Rodgers over both.
Okay. And Jameis Winston in deep leagues, someone that hopefully we're hoping he's the starter. And then let's talk about Cedric Tillman. What do you think about him coming off a big game?
We didn't spend a lot of time talking about him. Big game, first game without Amari Cooper. I think there'll be a little market correction coming for him. But, look, he was a decent prospect coming out 2 years ago and never really got an opportunity to showcase himself. It was funny because, both guys from Tennessee with Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, I was moderately excited about their destinations because, you looked at Cleveland didn't really have an established number 2 guy next to Cooper. And, then they make the trade for Judy this year, Elijah Moore last year. And so they really, I think, sort of stunted Tillman's growth. Giants we know about. I think for Tillman, take advantage of the opportunity. There was some talk, remember, in the preseason of Moore being pushed aside. Remember, it was the 3 receiver set was supposed to be Cooper, Judy, and Tillman. And he just didn't step up. Clearly, quarterback play had a lot to do with that. So I think Jameis unlocks a lot of things in Cleveland. I'm more excited now about Jerry Jeudy than I was before. I'm more excited about David Njoku, certainly. And Tillman, I would put him 6th of the guys to add. So you have Jennings, you have McMillan, you have Douglas, Lockett, Douglas, Tolbert, Tillman for me.
Okay. Well, that answers this question from Master J3, Tillman, Tolbert, or McMillan. He'd be last there. Tillman would be. And McMillan would be 1 for you. And he's dropping Calvin Ridley, which we support. Your decision. Would you drop Tank Dell for Dontavian Wicks?
No, not yet. I think this is a bounce back game for the entire Houston passing game. They were miserable. And I don't think CJ Stroud is this bad. I don't think Tank Dell is this disappointing. I think we get a big bounce back game against a very bad Colts secondary.
I need to elevate TJ Hawkinson at some point. Which handcuff would you drop? Braylon Allen or Trey Benson?
At this point, you're probably dropping Benson because I think there's a chance of Allen getting some garbage time work this week against the Patriots. So James Conner looks great so far. I would drop Benson.
Yeah, I think DeMarcado plays not too big of a role to make. Just comparing the two, if they both were thrust into the starting role, I would like Allen better. And then last question here from John Paul. Are we worrying about Marvin Harrison Jr.?
So if you based on his question using the 102, that's the rookie only draft. No, you shouldn't be worried about that. This happens with rookie receivers. They have some good moments, and then you like to see the second half of them step up and play at a much higher level. The frustrating thing is, and I'm one of these managers myself. You see Malik Neighbors and what he's done. You see Brian Thomas Jr. and what he's done, and you're having a little buyer's remorse. But there's still too much upside. And I know we reference the show from time to time, the First Pick podcast with Rick Spielman and Ryan Wilson. Rick was on our show on CBS Sports HQ on Sunday last week, and we were talking about Marvin Harrison's struggles before the concussion that he suffered. And Rick still stands by what he said pre-draft. He said he's going to be a Hall of Famer. So, Rick is the guy. Just for example, former general manager, he drafted Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
So he knows, and he found Adam Thielen. So if you want to talk about knowing the position a little bit, he does a pretty good job.
Good stuff. Thank you, Jamie. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today Express.